At just past 4 in the morning on a Tuesday in mid-June, two Ukrainian MiG-29 fighters are screaming through a limestone valley in the Sumy region, barely skimming the treetops. Their engines are guzzling fuel at an alarming rate, pushing the aging airframes close to the speed of sound, while a Russian Sukhoi Su-30 intercepts them from over a marathon's distance away. In roughly 15 minutes, these pilots will attempt to release 4 French-supplied AASM Hammer guided bombs on a Russian drone command post that has been terrorizing the local power grid for weeks. But first, they have to navigate what is essentially a suicide run through the densest air defense bubble on Earth. Standing between them and their payload is a layered network of S-400s, Tor Ms, and Buk M3s, all talking to each other and waiting for a single slip-up. If the Ukrainians fail, the intelligence assessments are grim. The city behind them is going to be hammered by a mass drone wave before most people have even finished their morning coffee. The formation climbs slightly and banks northeast, using the rolling terrain to hide their electronic footprint. Every mile of this path has been mapped out to slip through the tiny cracks in Russian radar coverage, cracks identified through months of high-stakes electronic hide-and-seek. As they cross into the contested gray zone, both pilots know they are flying into a trap where the margin for error is effectively zero. The first sign that the element of surprise is gone comes from a Russian S-400 battalion stationed just over the border. They activate their long-range surveillance radar, a massive piece of engineering that can see birds from the next province over. This is not the spinning dish you see in old war movies. It is a phased array system that scans the entire sky electronically in a fraction of a second. Its invisible waves wash over the lead MiG at a range of over 100 kilometers. This distance, and with the fighter hugging the Earth, the radar can't get a lock solid enough to guide a missile. But physics is a snitch. It detects a faint anomaly against the background noise of the ground. The system's computer flags this ghost for a human operator, sending a data packet through the Russian digital network to a Su-30 fighter patrol cruising at high altitude to the west. The Russian pilot, likely bored on a routine dawn patrol, gets the vector. He doesn't need to see them with his eyes. He lets his massive nose-mounted radar scan the weeds, knowing that even a momentary pop-up will light up his scope like a neon sign in a dark alley. Meanwhile, a dozen miles ahead of the rushing jets, a Ukrainian Bayraktar TB2 drone is loitering in the thin air of the upper atmosphere. To a radar operator, it looks about the size of a large seagull. Its camera ball has been staring at the target area all night, documenting every cigarette break and truck movement with unblinking patience. The drone operator, sitting in a disguised van that looks like it belongs to a plumbing company, has counted over a dozen reconnaissance drones launching from a converted barn in the last hour. Each launch confirms the intel. This isn't a farm. It's a nerve center for the invasion. But the TB2 isn't just there to watch. Its secure link provides targeting data to the jets, sure, but its real job is to be the world's most expensive fishing lure. Russian air defense crews are obsessed with swatting these drones, often turning on their active radars to take the shot, which broadcasts their exact location to anyone listening. Today, a Panzer missile system takes that bait. Its radar lights up to track the slow-moving drone, instantly screaming its position to every electronic warfare receiver in the county. The lead MiG pilot sees the threat warning on his dashboard, a simple system that blares an alarm when you're being painted by radar. He jinks the aircraft a few degrees east, putting a granite ridge between him and the missile site. It breaks the radar lock, but physics demands a toll. The maneuver burns precious jet fuel and costs them time, forcing him to push the throttles forward to stay on schedule. The roar of the engines rolls across the landscape, reaching a network of acoustic sensors miles away. These passive listening posts can't shoot you, but they can tell the command post that fast movers are inbound. The data hits the sector headquarters, and a colonel orders the entire air defense grid to wake up. Suddenly, every radar operator in the region stops drinking tea and starts scanning their screens with sweaty palms. The Su-30 pilot gets an updated vector, narrowing his search. He drops altitude and punches the afterburner, going supersonic. In a few minutes, he will be within range to fire his active radar missiles. The Ukrainian pilots are racing against a clock that is ticking faster than they realize. 10 miles from the first missile site, the lead Ukrainian pilot faces a math problem that could kill him. The mission requires them to release the bombs from high altitude to give them enough glide range to hit the target. But climbing up there means exposing themselves to every long-range radar in Russia. His warning gear is already chirping, letting him know search radars are sweeping him. Any second now, those chirps will turn into the solid tone of a weapons lock. Above them, the drone operator spots a Tor missile system powering up in a tree line. This mobile unit is the real killer. Unlike the big strategic systems, the Tor is designed to snapshoot fast targets in seconds. The lead MiG brakes hard, pulling enough J force to make his vision blur. This defensive move plays right into the Russian hand. By forcing the jets to turn, the Tor operator has herded them straight toward a Buk missile battery waiting on their flank. It's a classic ambush. Use the short-range guy to flush the birds into the shotgun of the medium-range guy. The wingman spots the trap first. His systems light up as the Buk's radar switches from look to kill mode. This is a modern system capable of engaging targets from miles away. They are right in its throat. But these pilots have drilled for this. Instead of turning tail and running, which would make them a huge, easy target, they turn directly at the threat and floor it, dumping clouds of radar-reflective chaff. This aggressive move confuses the Russian computer, which expects targets to run away. The rapid closing speed messes up the firing solution, and by the time the operator adjusts, the MiGs have flashed past the minimum engagement range. They are safe for the moment, but the maneuvering has bled off critical speed and altitude, energy they needed to toss the bombs. The drone operator sees the problem and steps in. He commands the drone to blast out electronic noise, flooding the enemy scopes with static. It's not military-grade jamming, but it creates enough confusion to buy the jets a few seconds of invisibility. Using the momentary confusion created by the electronic fog, the lead MiG-29 pilot pulls back hard on the center stick, initiating a zoom climb that trades his chaotic forward speed for perilous altitude. The fighter jet acts like a massive roller coaster car hitting the bottom of a loop, rocketing up from the safety of the weeds into the thin, freezing air of the upper atmosphere. The G-forces slam the pilot into his ejection seat, compressing his spine as the horizon tilts 90 degrees and disappears. At the apex of this ballistic arc, hanging in the sky just above stall speed where the controls feel mushy and unresponsive due to the lack of airflow over the wings, he releases 2 Hammer bombs. The weapons drop heavily from the pylons, their rocket motors kicking in after a pre-programmed safety delay to avoid scorching the airframe's delicate skin. The pilot immediately bunts the nose forward, practically standing on the rudder pedals to pivot the jet back toward the mud, his radar warning receiver screaming about new threats that have just woken up. As the jets retreat, the bomb's guidance systems wake up to a nightmare scenario. The GPS environment is completely sterilized. Russian jamming transmitters are drowning out the faint satellite signals with a tsunami of electromagnetic white noise. But the engineers anticipated this. The bombs seamlessly switch to their internal inertial navigation systems. Inside each weapon, ring laser gyroscopes and sensitive accelerometers measure every twitch, turn, and change in velocity, calculating their position purely through the fundamental laws of motion without needing to talk to the outside world. As they glide silently toward the target, the infrared cameras in their noses open their shutters, hunting for the specific heat signatures of the command trucks against the cold ground. The second MiG reaches its release point just as a Russian missile battery achieves what pilots call a hard lock, a continuous chirping stream of radar energy that signifies imminent death. The pilot has the length of a deep breath before a missile is in the air. He ripples his bombs at the secondary target, the barracks, and immediately snaps the jet into a violent diving turn, pumping out flares and chaff cartridges to create a decoy cloud of burning magnesium and fiberglass. 2 missiles erupt from the ground, riding pillars of fire and accelerating to hypersonic speeds in less than a heartbeat. These are modern, smart missiles. They don't need the ground radar to tell them where to go in the final seconds of the engagement. The pilot watches them on his threat display, a digital representation of his own mortality. He has less than half a minute to live. He throws the jet into a corkscrew dive, a punishing maneuver that forces the missiles to constantly change their intercept course, bleeding off their kinetic energy against the friction of the thick lower atmosphere. The first missile, unable to make the sharp geometric turn required to follow the spiral, flies past harmlessly, its seeker confused by the rapidly changing aspect of the target as the jet rolls around its own axis. The second missile is smarter, or perhaps just luckier. It anticipates the turn and cuts the corner, pulling lead like a skilled clay pigeon shooter to intercept the jet at its future position. With impact just a second away, the pilot yanks the stick back into his lap, straining the airframe to its absolute breaking point to reverse the turn direction. The missile tries to follow, but it cannot fight the dense air of the low altitude at that incredible speed. Physics dictates that the turning radius increases with speed. It explodes close enough to rattle the pilot's teeth, sending a spray of tungsten shrapnel into the tail section. But the Tumansky engines keep turning, drinking fuel and spitting fire. Both jets race for the border at treetop height. their bombs now gliding silently toward the target miles away. But the danger isn't over. The Russian Su-30 flanker has closed the distance and has a lock. The Ukrainian lead pilot checks his fuel state, barely enough to get home if he flies a straight, efficient line. But efficiency is out the window when a predator is on your tail. The Russian pilot fires, and the digital warble in the headset confirms the worst. The warning gear in the Ukrainian cockpit screams a new, urgent tone. 2 active radar air-to-air missiles are inbound, powered by motors that push them to 4 times the speed of sound. These things have their own little radars in the nose. Once they get close, they are autonomous sharks that don't need instructions from the launch plane. The pilots have a grim choice: climb and fight, which exposes them to the surface-to-air missiles again, or stay low and pray the terrain masking works. They choose to stay low. The rising sun, now peeking over the horizon, offers a desperate lifeline. The lead pilot banks hard, placing the sun directly behind his aircraft relative to the incoming missile. The missile's seeker, designed to ignore the ground clutter, gets blinded by the massive infrared glare of the star. The pilot adds to the chaos by dumping flares, creating a blinding wall of fire that saturates the missile's sensors. The first missile gets confused, locks onto the sun's massive heat signature, and flies off into the upper atmosphere to chase a star it will never catch. The second missile ignores the decoys and tracks the distinct heat of the MiG's engines against the cool morning air. The wingman is in the crosshairs. Impact is seconds away. He pulls a desperate move, yanking the nose vertical and cutting the engines to idle. The jet acts like a massive air brake, effectively stalling in midair and losing almost all forward velocity, hanging like a falling leaf. The missile's radar relies on the Doppler effect, specifically the movement of the target, to track it. Suddenly, the target is hovering. The missile overshoots, unable to see the stationary jet against the rushing ground. As it passes, the pilot slams the throttles back to full military power and dives to regain energy before he crashes. The noise alerts the ground crews again. An S-400 commander, seeing he can't get a clean shot at the low-flying jets, orders a desperation move. He fires a salvo of massive missiles not to hit the jets directly, but to explode in their flight path. These giant telephone pole-sized missiles streak up and detonate in a pre-planned grid, filling the sky with a cloud of heavy tungsten cubes. It's a multi-million-dollar shotgun blast designed to create a no-fly zone of flying metal. The pilots have to thread the needle through this artificial storm. They drop so low they are kicking up spray from the farm ponds, flying under power lines. The wall of shrapnel rains down above them, shredding the trees. A piece of metal punches a clean hole in the lead jet's wing, severing a non-critical control cable, but miraculously, the fuel tanks hold. They punch through the wall of steel and race for home, leaving the chaos behind them. But back at the target, the clock strikes 0, and the silent killers arrive. The 4 hammer bombs enter their final dive, initiating a terminal sequence that is terrifyingly silent. At this stage, the rocket motors have long since burned out, leaving the weapons to glide on their pop-out wings like predatory birds. They are invisible to the noise-activated acoustic sensors that guard the perimeter because gravity has no engine note. Since the GPS environment is completely sterilized by the jamming, the bombs are flying on pure math, utilizing internal ring laser gyroscopes that measure the rotation of the Earth and the bomb's own velocity to calculate position. They have drifted less than the length of a family car over miles of unguided flight. As they pierce the cloud deck, the uncooled infrared cameras in their noses snap open, picking up the targets with crystal clarity and comparing what they see to a 3D wireframe model stored in their memory banks. But the guidance is just the delivery service. The fuses on these bombs are the real engineering marvels here. They are programmable smart fuses that utilize microaccelerometers to feel what they are hitting by measuring deceleration forces in real time. The armorer back at the base set them specifically for this raid, programming a different logic gate for each target. The first bomb hits the command post. The fuse feels the sharp spike of the concrete roof, waits a fraction of a second, feels the second spike of the floor, and then detects the sudden drop in resistance that indicates the empty space of the main control room. It detonates in the dead center, maximizing the overpressure to liquefy everything inside before the shockwave even hits the walls. The building implodes, dropping the heavy concrete roof onto the operators inside who never saw it coming. The second bomb hits the fuel truck. The fuse is set to hair trigger mode, exploding the moment its crush switch touches the thin metal tank. The resulting fireball is not just an explosion, it is a thermal event. It consumes the communication vans parked next to it, melting the delicate phased array antennas into puddles of unrecognizable alloy before they can even transmit a distress signal. The intense heat, exceeding 2,000 degrees, warps the chassis of the vehicles, fusing the rubber tires to the asphalt in a gruesome display of thermal physics. The third bomb hits the wooden safe house. The fuse feels the soft wood, realizes it hasn't hit anything hard enough to warrant a detonation, and waits. It punches through the floorboards like they are made of wet cardboard, and only triggers when it buries itself in the concrete foundation, blowing the structure off the map from the bottom up. The fourth bomb enters the repair warehouse and switches to proximity airburst mode, detonating exactly 3 meters above the floor. This creates a downward cone of destruction, turning the bomb's casing into a tornado of flying steel cubes that shreds the delicate electronics, optical sensors, and logic boards of the drones racked inside. The effect is instant and practically visible across the electromagnetic spectrum as a sudden, deafening silence. High above the front lines, a dozen Russian Orlan-10 drones patrolling for Ukrainian artillery suddenly go stupid. Their control link is severed instantly. On the Russian operator screens, the video feeds turn to static simultaneously. Without instructions, the drones go into a default autopilot mode and start drifting back toward a base coordinates that are now nothing but a smoking crater. The pilots, safe in their own airspace, get the signal that the grid is down. The entire nerve center, the brains, the eyes, and the hands of the Russian drone war in this sector has been erased in less time than it takes to watch a short video on your phone. The enemy is blind, the artillery batteries are deaf, and the civilians in the city below will sleep through the night without air raid sirens for the first time in weeks. It was a gamble with millions of dollars of hardware and 2 irreplaceable lives, and the payout was absolute.